beg of you, Hersh, please do what you can to have your light shine down on me, Dada, Libby, and Orly. Help shower us with healing and resilience. Help us to rise again. I know it will take a long time, but please, may God bless us that one day, one fine day, Dada, Libby, Orly, and I will hear laughter, and we'll turn around and see it's us, and that we're okay. Okay, sweet boy, go now on your journey. I hope it's as good as the trips you dreamed about, because finally, my sweet boy, finally, you're free.
And Hersh was always self-assured. When we told 7-year-old Hersh that we were moving to Israel, making Aliyah, we told him that his name Hersh could be challenging for Israelis. Maybe you want to become Tzvi, which is the same meaning. Maybe you want to take on a nickname. We said to him, and Hersh looked up at us and said confidently, I'm Hersh. Israelis will deal with that.
If you're watching this now, it's most likely because you've heard of the awful news of the passing of the murder of Hersh Goldberg-Polin in Gaza. It is a sad, sad day. It's a sad moment. We share in the pain and the grief with the Goldberg-Polin family. Just earlier today, I was watching the Levaya, and it was heartbreaking. But to hear the words from Rachel Goldberg-Polin to say, Hersh, you are now finally free, that brings some sort of nechama, a little bit of comfort, knowing that he is no longer held with those monsters. We wished and we davened and we prayed that he'd be home with his family alive. Unfortunately, that's not how it turned out. In this episode that we aired several months ago, we spoke to Hersh Goldberg-Polin's mother, Rachel, and she spoke a lot about Hersh. And we're re-airing it because we want the world to know who he was, what he was all about, and his legacy shall live on forever. I implore you to leave a comment below. On the internet, there's many different people of many different opinions. And I want to make sure the Goldberg-Polin family can see the support, they can see the people who loved Hersh, who love them, and are there to support them. So please leave a comment below for the Goldberg-Polin family. This is who Hersh Goldberg-Polin was. I wish it was under better circumstances, but thank you for giving us your time. I want to start out by asking you if you can just, share with us a little bit more about your family. I know you were born in the United States. I guess, take us from there and what events led you to moving to Israel.
Okay. So, my husband and I were both born and raised in Chicago. He grew up in a very traditional Orthodox family. I grew up in a non-affiliated Jewish family. But I ended up at the same high school that he was at, the Orthodox Jewish High School in Chicago. And after high school, I came to Israel for a year, and then I went to Brandeis. My husband, who we had gone to the same high school together, we were friends. We weren't boyfriend, girlfriend. We were just friends. He came to Israel for a year for yeshiva, and then he went to Madison, University of Wisconsin. And we both ended up being in Israel at the same time after we had each graduated. And we ran into each other on the street. And one thing led to another. We started dating and we got married here. But he was a student here. I was also a student. I was actually learning Torah. He was getting a second degree, a business degree. And we ended up getting married here, but we weren't ready. When I say we weren't ready, I think I wasn't ready to make Aliyah and spend the rest of my life here yet. So we ended up moving to Berkeley, California, which was a big adventure.
I would say that's almost maybe even the opposite of Israel.
Exactly. Well, that was, part of the adventure was, we didn't have kids yet. We didn't have a mortgage. If we were going to do something wild and fun, that was the time to do it. And we both loved hiking and camping, and John loved biking. And we needed a religious community that was kind of more progressive and liberal, but observant. And friends of ours said, you'd really like Berkeley. So we ended up in Berkeley, California, and it was amazing. The community was wonderful. Hersh was born there. We say that's why he, tended to be more hippie, crunchy granola, because it was sort of, in the water when he was a baby. And his sister Libby was also born there in Berkeley. And when Hersh was almost 4, we moved to Richmond, Virginia, which was going from one kind of Jewish community on the spectrum to the complete opposite community.
Yeah.
Another wonderful community, but very much more traditional than we were. Most of our good friends were wearing black hats and white shirts and black pants. And we had a great experience in Richmond, loved it. And then when Hersh, the summer before he turned 8, we moved and came to Israel. And we also had another daughter when we were living in Richmond. So Hersh is the oldest and only boy, and then 2 girls who are now 20 and 18. And we've lived in Jerusalem. And, what motivated us to move was really this idea of we have an opportunity to live in a place where you can be Jewish and comfortable, and let's get on the ride. It's something that, in 2,000 years, not everyone had the opportunity to do. Let's try it.
I imagine it's been home. It's been a good place for you guys.
Definitely. And, our kids have had a foot in each world. I mean, for us, I think it's always a bit hard if you come as an adult by a certain age, you kind of miss that window where you're going to really feel 100% comfortable. We were almost 40 when we got here, but,
ancient, totally ancient.
I know, elderly. And, but we, have been very happy, and we felt very privileged. And, I think that there's a real gift of giving your children the ability to, speak and live in 2 languages and 2 cultures. And that's been our...
I always say on here, we have many different guests, many of which who live in Israel. And it always comes down to a lot. I remember something Rabbi Shlomo Katz said. He said that the future of the Jewish people is in Israel. That's where it is. So if you want to live part of the future of the Jewish people, you're either going to come later, or you're going to come now. So you made the decision. I'm going now. Yeah. It seems like you as well did that. If you could, I guess, tell us a little bit about Hersh, who he is.
Sure. So,
it's important, I think, to lay the foundation. I see, you have a number on your shirt over there, and that's not a brand, 74. It's been 74 days since you had contact with your son.
Right.
And it's super important that everyone who's watching this doesn't just know the situation. They know who your son is. And they know who you are.
Right.
So I guess tell us about Hersh.
So Hersh is a very curious, respectful, very smart, funny, sarcastic with like this dry sense of humor, but it's not mean. Because usually sarcasm goes a little bit mean, but Hersh is not, doesn't do that. He's a very respectful person who's not mean. He is a voracious reader. He started to read young and quick and became obsessed with reading. And so he would sweep a category. He got interested in Native Americans, and we would go to the library and he would read 20 books in a row about Native Americans. Or he went through a Civil War period. He went through an American president period where he would read about every single American president. And he also was very obsessed with geography. He had a wonderful teacher at his day school in Richmond, Virginia, and she fostered in him this love of geography. So he has had wanderlust and been obsessed with the idea of traveling the world since he was in first grade. And he's been actually, and every birthday or, for his bar mitzvah, he always asked for maps and atlases and globes, and always had a subscription to National Geographic magazine. always knew trivia because of all of his reading. You always wanted him on your team if there was any sort of trivia game being played. And he actually has a ticket for next week for December 27th for Goa, India, where he was going to start his trip around the world that he's been planning since he was 6. That was going to take, he had told us it would be at least a year, but probably 2. So we were aware that
he's been planning this since he was 6.
Yes. And so this summer, he actually did a quote unquote practice trip of 9 weeks by himself in Europe. He went to 6 different countries, 6 different music festivals. He went alone. In Switzerland, he met a friend from Israel who was, meeting him there, and they went to that music festival together. But otherwise, he's just a curious person. He loves meeting new people, finding out about them, asking hard questions, getting good answers, or insisting on getting good answers, pushing until people really would answer. And he's wild about soccer. He's a diehard Hapoel Jerusalem fan, soccer fan, very active in their fan group, which, they do all these activities for coexistence with the Arab population here in Jerusalem and at-risk kids, youth in Jerusalem. And that's a little slice of who Hersh is.
Yeah. The way I see things, there are sort of 2 tragic situations here. There's your personal matter with the situation and the condition of your son. And the second is sort of the national tragedy for Israel. Do you feel that? And how do you reconcile the parallel emotions of sort of having, what took place at large with the entire nation and what's going on with you in your home, with your personal situation?
Well, with this type of situation, which thank God, not many people ever experience, it's so all-encompassing and it's so excruciating that there's not a lot of room to digest the larger picture of what's happening. Just getting up and pretending to be human, just putting in these earbuds and talking to you and trying to appear like a normal person when I'm actually in, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and even physical pain. And it's not even pain, it's like excruciating agony. It involves every molecule of strength that I have, that I don't read the news. I'm not really up to date on, national news. I'm obviously aware that our country, our people, our nation is going through a trauma and tragedy, but we are experiencing a slow motion tragedy and trauma that is so acute and so filled with angst and despair that I don't actually have bandwidth left to process what is happening, on the larger national level.
Right. No, I totally hear that. And I appreciate the vulnerability and the honesty with that. That makes a whole lot of sense. We'll be right back to this episode of the podcast. But first, a word from our friends at Project Mesora. Rabbi Pesach Kron's Chizuk and Tefillah trip to Poland is a life-changing experience. Everyone will daven at Kivrei Tzadikim, such as Noam Elimelech, the Ramah, Tosfos, Yom Tov, the Bach, Megillah Yamukos, Rav Chaim Brisker, Chidushei Arim, Tzfas Emes, and many others. So what you can do is you could join Rabbi Pesach Kron as he takes you through Auschwitz, Birkenau, where so many of us lost family members. Rabbi Kron will take you to Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin to learn about Rav Meir Shapiro, the founding of the Daf Yomi movement. You will walk the streets of Krakow, Warsaw, Ger, and Lodz, and so many places. Our history is really rich in these places. You'll also see Oskar Schindler's factory, where those on Schindler's List were sheltered from the Nazis, Yamach Shemo, and were given the opportunity to survive. You'll visit Sarah Schneer's first base Yaakov and have a chance to daven by her caver. So many girls for the first time were given the chance to receive a Jewish education.
This Chizukah and Tefillah trip is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to daven, learn, connect, and most importantly, experience. Project Masorah handles everything. Top hotels, fully catered meals, all entrance fees, security, and more. Just bring a sitter with you and be ready for an experience of a lifetime. For more information to reserve your spot, call Project Masorah today at 845-570-1943 or email tours@projectmasorah.org. Once again, that's 845-570-1943 or tours@projectmasorah.org. I want to mention, if some of you have grandparents you want to bring, these people who maybe are hard of walking, Project Masorah also offers the option of wheelchairs, scooters. So that should not be something that stops you. If this is something that interests you, please make sure to reach out to Project Masorah today. Now back to this episode. If you could take us back personally to October 7th.
Sure.
To the events that unfolded for you and your family. What happened?
Sure. So I'll start with actually the evening of October 6th, because Hersh wasn't even supposed to be home at all on Friday. He had gone up north on Wednesday the 4th, and he was supposed to be up north from Wednesday the 4th until Sunday the 8th. He was at a music festival up north. But Friday midday, the police came and told the people who were organizing that music festival that they didn't have the right permits to continue through the weekend. So they closed up that music festival he was at up north, and he called and he said, I'm coming home, so I'll be home tonight for Simchas Torah, and I'll go to shul with you guys, and I'll go to Shabbat dinner because we were going to friends. He said, but then Honor and I, that's one of his two closest friends, he said, Honor and I are going to go out and do something fun, after dinner, go camping out somewhere. So he came with us to shul with his big, not so big, but with a camping backpack with his sleeping bag and stuff in it. And we all danced with the Torah at shul. He danced with the Torah. A lot of people were happy to see him because, as I said, he had been away for 9 weeks over the summer, so people hadn't seen him. And then we went to our friends for Shabbat dinner, and we had a nice meal. And at just around 11 o'clock, he kissed me, he kissed John, and he hugged our hostess goodbye. And I remember thinking, what a good boy.
Well.
And he said, I'll see you tomorrow. And he left. And that was 74 days ago. And the morning of the 7th, at 7:30 in the morning, John left for shul. He's actually the gabbai at our shul. And as you know, for Simchas Torah, it was going to start early because it was going to go long.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, I don't want to be there for 5 hours, so I'm going to go a little bit later. So I was having a cup of tea at our kitchen table, and right around 8 o'clock, the bomb sirens started to go off here in Jerusalem. So I ran to wake up my girls, who are 20 and 18, and we went to get into our bomb shelter, which is in our apartment. And we waited the 10 minutes that you're supposed to wait, and we didn't hear any explosions. So we came out, and I don't use my phone on Shabbos, so it was off and it was in a drawer, but I knew that Hersh and Honor were out camping somewhere outside where bombs were falling. So I thought, for Pikuach Nefesh, I'm turning on my phone. I got to know where my son is.
Right.
And I turned on the phone around 8:20. And from 8:11, 2 messages immediately popped up from WhatsApp to a group that John, Hersh, and I have, just the 3 of us. And the first message said, I love you. And the second message said, I'm sorry. And so I immediately knew something horrible was happening. And I said to my older daughter, we need to figure out where the boys are. I tried to call him. It didn't answer. I sent him a text saying, are you okay? Tell me you're okay. I'm going to leave my phone on. Tell me you're okay. Obviously, those were never answered. And Libby started to check what was happening sort of, within a 2-hour radius of us that could be where the boys were. And she found right away the Nova Music Festival. And, as I said, Hersh had just attended 6 music festivals. He was wild about music festivals. And Honor was a very accomplished, talented musician. So it made a lot of sense that they would be there. So I wrote to their third best friend, who, thank God, was not in Israel, or he would have been with them. And I said, are the boys at this music festival? And the friend wrote back, they're there. So we knew right away that they were there. And then it was really terrifying trying to find, where are they? And what we ended up finding out is that when the massacre started taking place early Shabbat morning, Hersh and Honor and 2 other kids ran to a car to try to escape in a car. And Hamas had blocked the road and were shooting at all the cars coming toward them. Once the cars were very close, they would shoot all the people in the car at point blank range. So there was a huge traffic situation because a bunch of people were dead in the cars in the front. And then all of a sudden, all these other cars trying to escape realized they were trapped. So they ran from the cars and tried to take cover. And there are a bunch of roadside bomb shelters down south next to all the bus stops. So the kids went running into all these bomb shelters, which Hersh ended up in one with 28 other young people who, first of all, were at this music festival called the Music Festival for Unity and Light. So you can sort of picture the demographic of people who were attending. Yeah. And the bomb shelter, John went a couple weeks ago to see it. I couldn't do that. It was 5 feet by 8 feet. So you can picture 29 people.
28 people, yeah.
Yeah, mashed in this tiny windowless cement bomb shelter. And Hamas came and started throwing in hand grenades, which Honor was standing in the doorway and managed to pick up and throw out 7 of them. But then 3 did end up getting by, and right away detonating and causing mass carnage, as you can imagine. And then they came to the door with an RPG, which they fired in. And then they just came with machine guns and were firing into this room. So most of those kids were dead right away. A lot of them were injured, and there were a few lucky ones that were trapped under the dead and dying bodies. And they were lucky because they could pretend to be dead. So we heard from those eyewitnesses that after a few minutes of a lot of dust, and it was very hot in the room, the smoke sort of went out and the dust settled, and a couple of Hamas gunmen came in, and they saw that there were 3 young men who were slumped against the wall, who were wounded but clearly still alive. And they ordered them to stand up. And when they stood up, one of them was Hersh, and we were told that his left arm from the elbow down had been blown off. Sometime during the lull, he had tied a bandage of some sort or a tourniquet around his wound, and they were walked out to a Hamas pickup truck, and it headed in the direction of Gaza. And his last phone cell signal was detected at 10:25 in the morning from inside of Gaza. And subsequently, a few days later, we were being interviewed by Anderson Cooper on CNN. And at the end of the interview, he said, "You guys, I'm calling you," which we thought was suspicious and weird because we had been interviewed a lot and no one ever said they were calling us afterwards. Right. But he called and he said, "I have footage of Hersh being kidnapped." And he sent us footage that he had found while doing a documentary about the music festival. And he recognized from our description of what happened to him. And at the same time that we were talking, you know, the media always puts pictures of the person they're talking about on the split screen. So he was looking at pictures of Hersh pre-October 7th, and he recognized him. And so we got this footage where we see Hersh walking calmly on his own 2 feet out of the bomb shelter. He gets himself up onto the truck with his non-dominant hand. Hersh and I are both left-handed. And when he turns to sit down, you see the stump of where his left arm was. And he doesn't lose consciousness. And I'm sure he was dazed, traumatized, and in shock. He had just seen 18 people killed, including his, close friend. that's the last that we've seen of him in these past 74 days.
As a mother, I'm sure I'm not sure actually, honestly. I'm not sure of anything. But you tell me, you see this video, so you're okay. Your son is alive at that point, but you see who's leading him, and those are, I wouldn't even call people. It's just evil. And then you see the condition that he's in, the injury. What are those emotions like?
Well, so it's interesting when Anderson Cooper first sent that, I didn't watch it because I didn't want to see that. John watched it a lot. John actually got hope and optimism out of it because he felt and continues to feel that, first of all, in this situation, you have to grab onto anything that can be construed as positive or hopeful or optimistic. And, in this parallel universe that we currently live in, we say things that normal people would never say. The first thing when we heard that he had been kidnapped was, oh, thank God, because he's not dead. Because the other kids who were in there were dead. And then when we got the video and John watched it, he said, oh, thank God it was Hamas. These are sentences that normal people would never utter. And we keep having those kind of things happen. I finally did watch the video because we were releasing it to the media and I was scared that it would come back to me, in some sort of surprising way. And I wanted to have seen it. No parent should ever have to see such a video. And I think through all of this, I've learned a lot about the human psyche, how we're able to compartmentalize things in order to survive. So it's sickening to watch that video, but I am able to when I have to. So when I was at the UN last week, speaking in Geneva, at a certain point, I had to show the video to someone who I had met, a diplomat. And I have to kind of show them because they don't know who Hersh is. So, and on that truck, there are other young men, and I want them to know this is Hersh. And I have to say, and that thing, that's the stump, where his arm used to be. And so I kind of have to guide them through it. And when I do that, I'm compartmentalizing being his mother and, feeling like when I watch that video and I see how robotic he seems, just dazed and confused. He's just had his arm blown off and his best friend blown up in front of him. And he just walks forward. And I think in many ways, 74 days ago, my heart was blown out and I'm just walking forward just like he did. Because the only way I can save him is if I am in some way functioning. There are a lot of people who can't function right now, which is 100,000% understandable. But while I can function, it's the only way I can help save him and save them. And so, that's what I do. That's what I try to do every day. We get up and we say, well, we failed because he's still not home. I ask all these quote unquote important people that we meet. We've met with all these world leaders and different important figures in the world. And we always say, what should we be doing that we're not doing? And they often say, you're doing every single thing right. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing every single thing right. And just today, I came upstairs after someone very, in a very high position in the American government. I had a phone call with him and he said that to me, you're doing every single thing right. And I came up and the team was up here and I said, you know why I know I'm not doing everything right? because he's still not home. So I'm obviously not doing everything right. And we're not doing everything right. And when I say we, I mean we, the whole world, is not doing everything right. Because these hostages, you know, the composition of these people, they're still from, at this point, the 100+ people who are still held hostage are from 20 different nations. They're Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindu, Buddhists. They range in age now. The youngest has turned 11 months old to 84 years old. Like, we are doing something wrong, that the whole entire world is allowing this international human catastrophe to continue to happen.
Yeah, it's almost unbelievable that it's been this long and we're just, days go by and they're still there.
Well, and honestly, I don't even know if they are still there. I mean, I can tell you there's no way on earth that they're all still alive, because the conditions that we heard about from the hostages who were released are so severe that they are dying, and we are letting them die. We, the world, are letting them die.
Hey guys, we'll be right back to this episode. But it's Dream Raffle season, and I sat down with Shmuel Sackett, the founder of the Dream Raffle. This is what he had to say.
I am joined by Shmuel Sackett from the dreamraffle.com. Here we are again, another year, another apartment to give away to a special lucky winner.
That's right. And what makes it so special this year is that all of the money being raised in the dreamraffle.com goes to help Israel during these challenging times. For example, we are helping farmers rebuild around the Gaza area. We're giving money for what's called Kitot Konenut, the local civilian security teams, lone soldiers, search and rescue. Do you know that the guys are still searching after what happened on October 7th? There are still many missing people, and the Israel Dog Unit is involved searching, and we are helping them with funds from the Dream Raffle. So it's really, Nachi, this year it's a win-win situation. You could win $1 million apartment, luxury apartment in the heart of Yerushalayim, and you win by supporting Israel during these very challenging times.
That's right. So everyone should head to thedreamraffle.com. Make sure you get your tickets. Use promo code MPP. You have to be in it, because on March 11th, when that drawing date comes, you want the possibility for your name to be called.
But I tell you, there's something even better now. Right now, we're offering 2 for 1. So if you buy 1 ticket, get 2, buy 3, get 6, and so on. And also, we have a bonus raffle, free of charge. You're entered into a second raffle with a $10,000 cash prize. So how about that? Apartment in Yerushalayim, $10,000 cash prize, 2 for 1, and use the coupon code MPP, Meaningful People Podcast, MPP, and save $10 more off of the tickets. TheDreamRaffle.com.
So you had mentioned, hearing from other hostages. Did you have the chance to speak to any of the released hostages? Did any of them see Hersh or hear of Hersh when they were there?
So none of the ones that were released knew of Hersh. It's not so surprising because most people were held with the people they were kidnapped with. And the people who were released were mostly women and children and babies from the kibbutzim. So he was not taken with that population. There were 3 people released from the music festival. 2 of them were siblings who were in a car, who were both shot and then dragged out of their car. So that also wasn't, with Hersh from the bomb shelter. And Roni, who was working security at the music festival, was kidnapped from the festival, and Hersh was in a bomb shelter a little bit away. So it's not crazy that people hadn't heard of him, seen him. Also, his name is unusual. A Yiddish name they hadn't heard his name. And of course, his most distinguishing characteristic is he has 1 arm, and they had not seen anyone with 1 arm.
You had mentioned that you're speaking with a lot of high-ranking officials, both in Israel and America. I believe you had the opportunity to meet with President Biden.
Is there anything you can tell us about that exchange you had?
President Biden has been the most sympathetic and empathetic figure who we've spoken to in a position of power. President Biden knows about loss. When he was a young man, his wife and his daughter and his two sons were in a terrible car accident, and his wife and daughter were both killed. And just a few years ago, one of those two sons was died of cancer. So he's familiar with loss. And in fact, on the first time that we spoke to him, which was already a long time ago, on October 12th, we were having a call with him. And while we were on the call, on the Zoom, there were only 12 of us on the call. One of the women who was on the call was already sitting Shiva for her daughter who had been found the day before. But she was on the call because her younger daughter was still missing. And while we were on the call, she got the knock on the door that they found her other daughter also dead. And she came back to this Zoom and she unmuted herself. We were all muted when someone was speaking. She unmuted herself and she was screaming, in agony. And she said, they just told me they found my other daughter. So now within, 24 hours, she lost both her children. And President Biden put his head in his hands and started to sob, and it was a real human moment. And we were all crying, all of us with her. But the whole administration and Congress has been incredibly supportive to us, and not just supportive emotionally, which is important, but we know that they're doing everything they can do. And there's a bunch they can't tell us, of course, when we meet.
Right. Yeah.
Last week there was a meeting with all the families that still have loved ones there who are American. And, sometimes in those meetings, people will say, well, what are you doing? And who are you talking to? And what's the plan? And John and I always look at each other and we think, they're not going to tell us that. And we understand, that they can't say, well, we're secretly talking to so-and-so at 2:13 tomorrow morning.
Right.
So there's a lot that we don't know, but we are aware that they are desperately trying to get the remaining 8 Americans and really all the people who are there. And President Biden always says that, this is not to him just an American issue. He really feels this is a humanitarian issue and that he needs to really help get everybody home.
Yeah. And, it really doesn't matter really what anyone's politics are. When it comes to this, hearing the way that President Biden reacted, what it does is it makes him very human. And that's what he is.
Yeah.
Right. Me or anyone else, like in my position as just being a spectator on the sidelines here, obviously we're praying, we're doing everything we can. But president is president, and that's a job. And there's policies that almost represent that person that you may agree with or disagree with, but a story like you just told, it cuts through all of that.
Right.
He is a father of children. He is a husband to a spouse. And I thank you for telling us that, because that breaks down so many barriers. It's not about Democrat, Republican. It's not about which side anybody's on. This is about good versus evil.
Well, we've had...
That's what it is.
True. And we've had, there are a couple things. The first thing is we've met with over 20 senators. And what was really nice was at one point in the same room was a very conservative Republican and a very liberal Democrat. And they said, this is an American issue. We don't care what anyone's politics are. Nobody in America wants to see Americans held hostage. And they all got together and, signed, what we were working on, bipartisan, support to get all the hostages out. And that is very hopeful. And, when I spoke last week in Geneva, I spoke about how we're living in a world that is so bifurcated, so divided. We love to say them and us. We love it. We love to divide the world. And it's become so dangerous and so hateful by doing that. And I think that we really have to redefine how we walk through the world. I don't think it's healthy for anybody. And I think it categorizes people in a way that's a false sense of divisiveness. I think that we should be redefining the world as those who are willing and those who are not. And I think all over the world, there are people who are willing, who are scared, but are willing to say, I'm willing to compromise, even though I'm scared, even though I don't trust you, even though I'm suspicious, even though I'm in pain, even though I'm in trauma. And there are people who are not willing and want to keep the hate, because group hate is fun. It's easy.
Right.
We all know it. I mean, even back to, when you're in kindergarten and you're first learning, if you like the Yankees, you have to hate the Mets, or whatever it is. Like we're used to dividing the world into things that we love and things that we hate. But I think we've gotten to the point in the world where it's not serving us very well to be divided that way.
We'll be right back to this episode, but first, a word from my friends at Pesach with Bordeaux. I'm so happy to be joining them for Pesach this year, and I hope to see you there. I actually have been with them a couple of years. This year, I'll be there, I guess, moderating some panels and doing some meaningful stuff, I hope. So hope to see you there. There's a great lineup of people: Mordechai Shapiro, Rabbi Jonathan Rietti, Rabbi Daniel Kalish, Shemi Adar, Rabbi Reuven Epstein, plus many others. So it is a jam-packed Pesach of talent. They have such an amazing program set up, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So if you are in that parsha of going away Pesach, make sure you go Pesach with Bordeaux. Make sure to head to pesachwithbordeaux.com. You can email them at pesachwithbordeaux@gmail.com or give them a phone call if you're old school at 347-699-6120. Find out how we could be spending Pesach together at Bordeaux. I also want to mention a very important cause that has come to my attention, and that is Shomer Tzion. The Nof Tzion neighborhood overlooks the Temple Mount, Har Bayis, and it connects East and West Jerusalem. What this organization, Shomer Tzion, does is they maintain a flourishing and living Jewish presence in the vicinity of hostile Arab villages, Jabal, Bakhbar, from which acts of aggression are all too regular. To this day, they have not experienced one loss or damage, thank God, due to unexplainable miracles. A big thanks goes to all the people who have supported Shomer Tzion. It's a group of people who make sure that this area is protected, that Jewish people are able to live there and thrive and be protected. They need things such as means of communication, bulletproof vests, lighting, security cameras, all to maintain the safety of the residents. So please go ahead, hit the link in the description in the show notes of this episode, and support this amazing cause, Shomer Tzion. Now back to this episode.
And I think that, as religious Jews, what we've been seeing since October 7th is really, it's really incredible. It's the unity of the Jewish people. Doesn't matter if they wear a yarmulke, what type of yarmulke, whether it's a hat or no hat. None of that matters anymore. You see people who previously probably could have been in the same room, who are now hugging and singing together and dancing together. You see Haredim getting with IDF soldiers to take care of them, soldiers getting with Haredim. Those barriers are breaking down. Does your family feel that happening in the Jewish world? And what does that do for you as a family?
We definitely are feeling support from places we didn't think we'd feel support. And that's been really special and helpful. Someone sent us the night before Hanukkah started, someone sent us a picture of a Haredi yeshiva here in Yerushalayim where they were setting up Chanukiot, and each Chanukiah had a name of one of the hostages on it, which was huge because obviously the kibbutzim that were affected were not religious kibbutzim, and the kids who were at the music festival obviously were not keeping Shabbat if they were at this music festival. But all of the sudden, the Haredi world was open to understanding Achenu Beit Yisrael, right? These are our brothers. And we know, I mean, the Rambam says the greatest mitzvah that you can perform is, releasing captives and to helping set free captives is the most important mitzvah. And, everyone does their part, even if your part is davening and saying Tehillim for Hersh ben Perel Chana every day, that is helping him. And, I daven every morning. I've davened every morning for years. This isn't okay, now it's post October 7th and I'm Mima Mikim Kariticha Hashem. I am used to davening every day. But it means a lot to me that I know that people who are not like me are davening for us and for all the hostages and for Hersh. And what's been very helpful, and I've mentioned this before, I say Tehillim all day. I'm calling out to Hashem all day. And I think of Tehillim as a self-help book. You'd pick the one that speaks to you at that moment. And this for sure is a period where the ones that are, praising Hashem are a little challenging for me. The easier ones are, the ones that David HaMelech was saying when he felt like, where are you? Where have you gone? Al taster panecha mimeni. But I'm trying to use my faith and my relationship with God to get through this most dark of times that anyone can imagine.
I watched yesterday an interview on 60 Minutes with one of the released hostages, Yarden Rahman. And she told Leslie Stahl in the 60-minute interview that while she was in captivity, she overheard her name being spoken about on the radio. Her captives were listening to it. And from that report, she was able to figure out that her husband and her daughter, their names were mentioned, so they were likely to be alive. It gave her some, some hope. I can't say for sure that this is going to find its way onto a device in Gaza, anywhere. But if it does, if you could send a message to your son, Hersh, what would it be right now?
Well, throughout the day from the get-go, I've had this mantra that I've been saying to him. I say, I love you, stay strong, survive. I love you, stay strong, survive. And we're coming. Just stay strong. We're coming. I hope and pray all day long that I have the schus of hugging him and being at his wedding and holding his children. And I hope I have the schus of having a long life and having him bury me and having my girls bury me and not the other way around.
Man. And he should know that he has a flight coming up. So
he's got to get over here. I mean, come on, Nachi. What the heck? I know. Because I think it was a cheap ticket and I don't think we can get a refund.
Oh, man. That's awful. So, Hersh, you got a flight to catch? Yalla, let's go. Really, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone who's listening to this will continue to have Hersh's names on their lips and to daven. And hopefully by the time this airs, Hersh will be home.
Amen. And next time you can meet him, you can interview him. But keep davening for Hersh ben Perel Chana. I'm like straight out of the shtetl. Perel Chana.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I appreciate
And
you.
Hersh.
I
That's
mean, come
amazing.
on,
Yeah.
Hersh. It's so cute. It's such a
Yeah.
good name.
Yeah.
I keep saying, he always complained about his name because Hersh Goldberg-Polin. It's like 3 last names. But now he should be so
Yeah.
happy. Can
It's
you
like a law
imagine?
firm.
What if his name was like David Cohen? Then, I mean,
Right.
it would be very difficult to find him now.
Yeah. Definitely makes it a lot easier.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for
you.
joining us.
Thanks a lot.